Hello, welcome to this edition of Executive Edge. I'm Joe McClung, and I am absolutely ecstatic to have an exceptional guest here today, Justin Bushko with Concise Engineering, also known as the MedTech man who wears incredibly great coats. I had to come alongside and make sure wouldn't let him show him up with the great coats. And he also is an author of a book called Medical Device Fireside Chats. Really is a great handbook for entrepreneurs and startups, giving them some of the advice and insights he had. And some of those we're going to share today. So, Justin, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, that's awesome, Joe. Thank you very much for the invite. I'm happy to be here, and I'm really glad to hear that intro. Thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, Justin, I've had a chance to get to know you at the meetings and LSI, and hey, you're here a Tampa Bay native as well. Yep. But give us a little insight into you. And secondly, I'd love to understand a little bit more about Concise Engineering.
Sure. So I've been in the area for over 20 years, been in engineering since I got out of school back in the 90s. And so I started basically in industrial design and industrial engineering, did some stuff in nuclear, and then quickly switched into MedTech. So I've been in MedTech for over 20 years, worked in industry at ConMed and orthopedics, at Smith & Nephew and wound care and risk management. So a lot of good background.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit just what you do primarily in Concise Engineering to help the MedTech startups get to market. What value do you provide them?
Yeah. So I like to say we go from napkin sketch to FDA clearance.
Got it.
Basically, we can do all their QMS work, their regulatory work, all the boring engineering, mechanical, electrical, firmware, mobile app, cloud-based stuff if they need it, and get them through their clearance for 510K or PMA.
Wow. So really, yeah, from that ideation stage all the way through. Now, I understand you're working on something kind of unique right now. Are you able to share that with us?
Just a little bit. So we're working right now on a product that will eventually be used in pancreatic cancer and skin cancer. It's a novel thing it's been around for a long time, but there's a lot of new nuances in the patents. And right now we're using it in the vet space, and it's getting a lot of good coverage with academics. And it's starting to be used in clinical studies now.
That's awesome. I mean, really helping. Two very diverse levels of cancer, right? But deadly cancer. Pancreatic cancer is one of the highest mortality rates out there. So if you can do something to impact that, imagine how impactful that is. Now, in that, as you're thinking with people that have that napkin, right? You've worked with a lot of those entrepreneurs and innovators that have the idea. But something you've talked to me about is that design for manufacturing. Can you tell us a little bit more about the importance of that thinking?
So obviously if you're doing an early stage prototype, that prototype might get you the concept to your investor or the concept across to the KOL, but it's not going to be something necessarily you can scale. And you need to know where you're going to scale. Is it thousands a month, hundreds of thousands, millions a year? Where are you headed? Knowing that really sets the stage for where you're headed. And there's a lot of engineering work that needs to go into getting a good design and not just a good prototype. So you got to be aware that they're two different things.
Right, yeah. So it's thinking beyond that proof of concept. Where do you see most people stumble in that thinking? Where do they make their mistakes?
Well, what I've found is a lot of early stage entrepreneurs will go about a year in, they're getting some early stage investment, and they have something in their hand that they think is done, and they may still be 2 years away from finishing the device. Everything that's necessary for the FDA, all the regulation, a lot of details that need to be addressed, and oftentimes they think they're done, but they've just started. And that's actually in the book.
Yeah.
Right in the middle. Now it's time to start.
Right in the middle. And that probably affects how they fundraise too, because if you're thinking you're close to the end, you're not going to fundraise and dilute more of your ownership, et cetera, because you don't think you need that runway. And I've seen a lot of companies get to that funding cliff and not be able to get that next round because they didn't start or raise enough the first time.
Correct. And that actually gets them to the point where they're promising something that really isn't going to happen, or they've overcommitted those milestones, and it really starts to decrease their trustworthiness to the investors.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was in a conference the other day, and a major investor who does the startups, he told me invest in three things. The CEO, and then the innovation. So losing that trust is crucial, right? And being able to predict that correctly. and be able to do it. So how are you able to come alongside those napkin entrepreneurs, right, or early prototype entrepreneurs? How do you help them steer to that longer horizon? Where do you come? Give me some examples of how you help them.
Yeah, so when we're looking at a design, unless somebody were to call us specifically and said, can you prototype something? I'm not even interested in getting to the end. We assume the end. So we'll do a statement of work that covers from that napkin sketch all the way to the FDA and make sure they understand all of those pitfalls and all of those hurdles. In that process, we can also put in some of the milestones that the investors might want to see and talk about why those cost more money and they're not that useful. So we need to make sure we plan ahead for them. Because a lot of times they'll think, when I get to here, I'm going to have this thing to show to my investors. Well, no, you're going to have something maybe a lot more crude, but actually on the right path. But if you do a really fancy thing, you might be wasting money if the investors don't need to see it.
Right. That's a good point, right?
Yeah.
They sometimes, what I heard you saying a little bit there is, one, when you come, it's the plan up front, right?
Yeah.
You're planning, even if they're saying, coming to you right now, all I need is that prototype. You've been down this road enough,
Yeah.
right? You've seen it happen enough in your book
Yeah.
that isn't the right thinking.
Correct.
You're going to help them think, what's that FDA? What are they going to need to see? What's that investors going to need to see? Maybe even reimbursement categories you might help them scope of work. And I love the idea, as so many people want to, they're married to their idea. They want to make it look pretty.
Yep.
Right? No one likes an ugly baby, So they spend too much money though sometimes on making that first prototype perfect, and that's not what you need to get the inflection.
Exactly. A lot of times the early stage entrepreneurs, as they're going to raise money, they feel like they need to have the product in their hand in order to get that buy-in. And really, that doesn't buy you a whole lot, because all it does is show you that you've done a prototype that really isn't done yet. So the investors are happy to see it, but it doesn't necessarily cross any real thresholds. But a lot of times it's needed for the confidence of the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. Yeah, so what I hear you saying is the belief that perfect prototype, or even a prototype, is crucial to hit an inflection point. But what you've seen in the market over the years, that's not the case.
It's not always the case. I mean, there are some things that you do want to see, you want to de-risk, but there's definitely other things that you don't need to. Oftentimes I go, I just pick up my cell phone and say, you see this, right? We can do everything you've asked for, right? This does it already. It's not a new thing. So why would you go just prove that you can do Bluetooth? That's not a value, right?
Right. Yeah, it's already done. It's now, how do you apply it?
Yeah. What's it going to do? How's it going to benefit the KOL? What are the benefits and values that the hospital system are going to get out of it, the ASC?
Yeah.
And you have to be able to display that.
Right. And probably have a manufacturing plan at scale that's going to be able to show them COGS.
Yep.
That's going to bring long-term margins that either a strategic's going to be interested in or is going to produce a viable business depending on the product.
Absolutely. And the other thing too that is when you were talking about design for manufacture, early on, a lot of the entrepreneurs will assume that their COGS that they're targeting, maybe it's some awkward like low level $6 disposable. They won't realize that the first couple units are going to cost them $300-400 a piece, because you're nowhere near scale. So when you start building your 1,000 pieces for early stage prototyping V&V, you're paying a lot more for those products until you start to automate and do other things. So understanding those milestones for your automation and things along the line are also critical.
Yeah, I can imagine. So you're even talking past, you're getting into early production.
Yeah.
Right? Early clinical phase.
Yep.
I hear you saying they might not be getting, again, enough funding because their calculations are run off COGS at volume.
Absolutely.
And not calculation COGS at small runs.
Yep.
And so being able to have that, because that increases your burn exponentially.
It does, and it happens a lot. So it's a very easy mistake to make.
Yeah, so a couple of mistakes we talked about here is, one, being able to make sure that the belief, and I guess we'll start with the first, which is start with the end in mind, right? Have the entire plan, not just how to get to prototype, and that you're halfway through the book, you're just getting started.
Exactly.
Number two is the importance of that prototype. How pretty does it need to be? Does it need to be, right? You can burn a lot of money on that prototype, being able to have it. And then three is, I heard you say, is really understand, your COGS long term, but know in the short term. Because if you're doing that, your clinical trials, early phase, early commercialization, that cost of goods until you get to scale might be significantly higher, especially if you depreciate, different injection molding tools, different things like that. Is that?
Yep, absolutely. And even if you're doing like a complex console, you could be looking at 2 or 3x the normal COGS just for small quantities. So it really shifts quite a bit depending on what's going on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about, from Concise Engineering and when they're going to scale, right? So you get them to that FDA. What's some of the best practices you've seen as they're making that transition, into that scaling stage for an entrepreneur?
Yeah. So generally, you need to engage, the design team needs to engage with the manufacturing facility early, all right, to start looking at those different things. So who are the injection molders? Who's going to do final assembly? How are they going to package? Starting getting all that stuff under control as early as possible, because the packaging material is going to affect how it's sterilized, how it's put in, what types of additional things need to go into that disposable. It's also going to really impact just how that communication occurs throughout their process, fixturing, automation. You have to start those conversations early. Plus, finding the right manufacturer could take you over a year if you're not doing it right. And you'll find early stage startups, the big guys don't want to work with them.
Yeah, because there's a lot of cost in scaling and getting those initial early prototypes.
Yep.
And hey, what's the percent that actually are successful?
Exactly, it's very, very low. I mean, I read something yesterday that said 98% fail.
Yeah. So how do they find that manufacturing partner? What have you seen that works best?
Really, it's networking, right? So you have to know who's out there, who's looking, why are they hungry, what are they hungry for, what are the markets they're looking to get into. I've seen some small entrepreneurs get into bigger companies because they kind of wanted a niche. They were hoping that company would get purchased, right? But then if that doesn't pan out, you're just kind of wasting time and they'll eventually drop you, right? So it's really tricky, but I think it's really it's a numbers game. You got to talk to enough people, know where it might go, and continue those relationships. So that's what we've been doing for years, and so we know a little bit more of those connections and who you might go to. Nice.
So you're not only helping with the engineering, you're helping sometimes a lot of making that connection, right, into that manufacturing.
Yep.
And what I heard you say in that manufacturing too is, one, understand that some of the big guys you assume that's going to be your engine might not want you at this stage.
Yep.
And then number two is, engage early on, because depending what their capabilities are in packaging, their capabilities in injection molding, it could drastically change your bill of materials. Because if they don't have that tooling and that's your partner,
yep,
you're going to have to go back and change your bill of material, which might change submissions, which would really put you behind.
Yeah, it could change everything. So you need to work through those details early. And some of those things take months to figure out, so you want to have that time. It's not just like, let's engage them on Friday so we know what we're doing on Monday.
Yeah.
That's not how it works.
Yeah, and I would imagine it's probably even for you, and it's why you probably are close to several of the manufacturers, is that conversation of manufacturability, because you're designed for manufacturing, right? You're not just designing a prototype, is probably starts as a collaboration. Hey, I'm thinking about doing this. They're like, well, we've got this tooling, which is close if you do it a little this way. You're like, oh, okay, that will work, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of probably that little collaboration.
Yeah, there's a little bit of back and forth. And luckily also, most of my staff have worked in operations in manufacturing as well. So we've done these things before. We've gone through the processes. We've put things into different machine houses, into different injection molding houses. So we've gone through the process over the last 20 years to know what they're looking for, so we're not coming raw.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Great. Well, I think we learned some great lessons on probably, what to think some of the landmines people have stepped on. Yep. Now, looking back at your book and some of your fireside chat, and we don't have a fire here, but we could outside. Yeah. What other things would you recommend, or you've seen as best practices for innovators that have that napkin idea? They're sitting here listening to this right now.
Well, I think early stage, you want to look at what's your actual market, right? It's amazing how many entrepreneurs will have an idea and they know it's going to help them in their day-to-day, but they might actually realize it's only going to help them in 2 cases out of a month, and they're in a niche, and it's never going to be a marketable product. You're never going to make any money. Mm-hmm. So nobody's going to want to even talk to you about it. Right. So you got to understand that. And then you also want to look at where can this go from a platform perspective? If this is a one and done product, or can I actually take it to here and here and here? But then stay focused. Stay focused on the one that's going to make money first, but know that you have options in the future.
That's good to think about. One, make sure your TAM is big enough.
Yep.
Right? Two is make sure that if you do have a platform and a huge TAM, and I've seen this, I've talked to some entrepreneurs, they're like, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing that, you know, and one was just sold their private equity, and the new CEO came in and said the first thing we have to do is focus. It can do all these things, and everyone's, you know, it's technology.
Yep.
But he's like, we're going to focus on just thoracic. That's it.
Yep.
You know, we're going to win that space first, then prove it out, and then scale. And I think that's what I hear you saying.
Yeah, because you have to have the right staff, you have to have the right money.
Yeah.
And then the focus, like you're going to lose executive focus, you're going to lose commercial focus. You have to focus somewhere.
Now, I'm curious, even in the design stage, right, and the engineering stage and the production stage, is there any thought to, you know, the economics, whether it's reimbursement or market impact? Do you guys, I mean, is that part of the discussion? Is that important?
I think it's important early on to understand those things. That's definitely not a place that we focus very much, but we have some great connections in that space. So we can help with reimbursement connections, value analysis connections, and things like that. But without those things on the table as a potential win for them, we'll often decline a project, because if I don't see that you're going to be successful, I don't want to take your money and just, you know, degrade the entire MedTech society.
Right. No, that's good, because I mean, you're not like you're a manufacturer. Is you want to see success because that's that long term, and if you really can advise them, I don't see the path to, you know, that economics. Whether it's, you know, because at the end of the day, we've seen in this MedTech space, you can have great clinical impact, but if no one's going to pay for it,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, because medical is a business like any other, right?
Absolutely.
So you got to figure that out as well. That's incredible. Well, you know, I think in closing, is there any one last, if we've got an entrepreneur in, you know, listening to this, has that, maybe they're getting close to that first prototype stage, what do you want to tell them?
I would say, to be honest, that manufacturers are not the best design houses. So make sure you have another partner that's looking at that stuff, because they'll take it so they can run with it, but they're not necessarily going to get you to where you really need to be. They'll be able to make it, but it might not meet your user and clinical needs. So you got to have that focus on the design side as well.
Yeah, that makes sense, because they're going to be looking at it from their angle of ease and throughput and capacity and things like that, which might push you down a path. And they're not doing it, it just that's other minds focused, right? You know, and where a design house is going to think of that, but also optimize the product as well. And having that tension of two, whoever you choose, is crucial in success.
Yeah, a lot of people are going to look for a one-stop shop, and you can find them, but it's rare. And to find it specifically for what you want, it gets even trickier. So it's better to have a lot of minds on the target.
Excellent. Well, if someone wants to first get the book, you know, the Medical Device book, which is the handbook for entrepreneurs, where would they find that?
So Medical Device Fireside Chats is on Amazon. That's the easiest place to find it.
Okay, great.
Or if you happen to see me at a conference, I might have a copy with me.
All right, awesome. And then how do they find the MedTech man if they need some advice in engineering, or it sounds like just a great sounding board for this community? How do they find you?
So you can look up medtechman.com. That'll take you to the blog and the website. There you can find my info. Or Justin Bushko on LinkedIn. That's the only name on there with, you know, Justin Bushko.
Yeah.
You'll be able to find me fairly quickly. And then also you can just hit me up at jbushko at concise-engineering.com.
Awesome. Well, Justin, thanks so much for coming on this edition of Executive Edge. I know I've got some golden nuggets to take away that, you know, as we're talking to some of our clients in innovation, and I'm hoping some people have got some nice nuggets from this. I'm sure they have.
That's good.
So thanks so much for joining.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.